Studio mode. That's right, baby. 3, 2, 1. It's got like it's supposed to be a 20-second delay, but apparently comes out a little longer than that. Right? So I keep getting docked for playing other people's music, so I'll play you a song myself. Thanks for joining us again. Oh, what's wrong with chat? I know it's live because I saw it on. I get a feedback, but I'm not getting my chat. It's not coming up on here. Let me see if I can fix that in a second. All right. I'm going to do a little bit of see if I can't find my chat. I don't know why that's not. Everything else seems to be going. So I'm going to, if we get a little reverberation, that's going to be because I'm popping the chat out. Let's see. I'm going to go like over here. Oh, where it happened. Old dog, new tricks. It's just playing the music there as it goes. Let's see. So I'm going to turn the music sound off, and I'm going to pop out a chat. Let's see. How do I do that? I need to go up and down. Pop out chat. All right. And then, so I got that stopped. I got a chat popped out, and I'm bringing up my studio again. And good morning, everybody. Cool. Looks like I got a few folks in the house, and we're going to pick up where we were last week, more or less, I think. I realized a couple days ago or after that last show that I kind of like led. It was like a bunch of beginner skiers came up, said, "Hey, can you show us how to get to this run?" And I led you up to the edge of the cliff and dropped in without. Excellent. The closed caption is going on automatically now. Yep, I appreciate that. Let me know. I've been going in and turning them on afterwards. I know some people like to listen to me while they drive, and I'm sure there's people who have hearing issues who would like to read what I'm saying, and I have a thick accent at times and things like that. So let's see if I can't turn that on the studio mode as well. So yeah, like I was saying there, it was like I'm a super advanced pro skier, and a bunch of novices came up and said, "Hey, how do I get to here?" And I pointed you the way and then dropped in and left you hanging on the edge of the cliff without knowing the way through there. The flute is a spirit flute. I've had that for 20-something years, and I bought it at a local Native American shop here in town. I don't recall the name of it. It was reiterated a couple of times and closed, but it has a real pipestone eagle's head on there, and this is all hand painted and stuff, and it's a split cedar construction. Somebody was asking in chat about my flute. Don't usually play it with that kind of gusto. So where were we though? We were talking about migraines and how do we treat migraines and how do I go about looking at everything and figuring out how I'm gonna say, hey, try this, try that, try that. And I said all those things, but I didn't really say what would be an RX, what would be a prescription of that, and still have seeds available for sure. There's seeds at the Daga, and then currently. As of the week of this show being live, I'm having a fire sale to raise some funds, and so you can email me. I put an email in the description there for donation purposes or contact, whatever you want to get a hold of me. But I'm able to send Peter. I'm keeping stock with right now like 30 different varieties at the Daga, and I'm going to send him some more this week. So we might get up to 40 or 50, but I have probably 100 different varieties. And well, I have several hundred, but like there's probably about 100 on the 100 available, 80 maybe. I haven't listed. I haven't looked at it in a minute. And I need to pack more, all the time, constantly. So anyhow, let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and bring up. So I won't be able to see myself, but neither will you. We're gonna look at. Where am I going? Web browser. That's the one. All right. I'm going to transition. This is funny because I'm actually like in the background there. Oh, right. What did I do? Boom. All right. So we were looking at migraines, right, and all the different things that might cause them and how we might attack them. And we were looking at, was it over here? I have no, I'm sorry, that's later today. Where'd they go? We have, this is interesting. Came up in chat the other night. Pollen grains nearly spherical in shape for cannabis, 25 to 30 microns. Someone was asking if juniper might cause some of the small little flowers, and I wish Brother Bone was here because I can't think of the name that he was throwing down, right? But it's crazy because they're the exact same shape and size, right? And so it could possibly trigger a fault, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for terpenes, right? Okay, so we were talking about how terpenes, let's see, how do I want to go, we were looking at like these here, let's look at this one. That talks about different kinds of plants. We can go through and see these different charts, right? And we can learn stuff by studying these charts, whatever, but we can also ask questions of which terpene, right? Let's see, I'm just touching on some bringing up some different charts here. Thing I didn't mention is stuff like how we can mix up CBD with THC, right? And what kind of things would I do for a migraine, right? You want to kind of sedate yourself and just relax and go to sleep, right? It's sometimes. This is talking about cancer, it looks like. But we can use what we're seeing here. Like, so gosh, what was it said, was it limonene that caused the anti-inflammatory and whatever it was. The main thing I wanted, so it was CBD. I was talking about levers and fulcrums, right? You can use CBD to counter the effects of THC when you have too much THC. So you've got something you want to deal with this migraine and just leaving the terpene out of it. We're talking about you can go one THC delta 9, 2 CBDs, and 1 THCA. Okay. And then if you want to stay awake and energetic, you can put some THCV into it, right? So depending on what it is, but like some cancers require a whole bunch more CBD to THC, so you can take a lot more THC to deal with it. There's and I really wish I went back and I had some notes on this because I had a train of thought and I've completely forgotten what it was exactly where I was going with. I wanted to talk about the terpenes that I had found in that conversation when I asked the questions. But I didn't go back and watch that video, so I apologize. What I wanted to say was you want to look at different titrations. And whatever it is that you find in that process, whether it's the pinene, the mycene, you got to realize some of those things have antagonistic and synergistic application. And so one will increase something, one will decrease something on it. And it would be interesting, and I don't know how much of it is if it's readily available to understand how those affect each other and balance, right? But again, like with the CBD, it totally counters the effect. And when I first experienced a mixed CBD THC strain extract, for me, that caused that caused me to think about how not sexual orgy, but the feast of food, where they would gouge themselves with massive amounts of great food, and then they'd make themselves throw up, right? And it was my first estimate of that was like, well, I consume way more THC and I can purge by consuming the CBD because it balanced it out, right? And it caused it so it wasn't like overwhelming, heart racing, or whatever it is. And a good description of it, just for people who haven't really experienced it. And I don't know how else, like I had a patient who had severe back pain, and he came in one day just gray in the face, sweating, just like, dude, I need help bad. And I just gave him a big bat of a really high THC polyhybrid that killed his pain. You could watch him just melt away, but it caused him just like crazy anxiety, and he had to lay down and was just like freaking out, just like, dude, and I went over, I found another plant I had suspected had a high CBD content in it, and I just put a couple of leaves of that into a bowl and had him puff that once, and he just went straight into laughing. Boom. So the chemistry of these things has, you got to find where you're at, right? And I wish this chat here wasn't all messed up. What we're going to do, and I brought a couple of these other ones up already. And I said there is, you know, as we move forward in the world, whatever it is, that we start realizing we've seen it already, that and we have strains named after Charlotte, for instance, because you know, there's a child that received great relief from CBD, and the strain was bred to fit her needs more or less, right? And so we've got, I kind of want to, I'm all of a sudden, I'm seeing all sorts of charts off on the side. Like, what is all this stuff? What is this stuff? Let me do this and transition to there. And then I'm going to go, what is that? That is totally not what we were looking at. That's the funniest thing. How does it become that? I don't know. But anyhow, that's not what we were looking at. We were looking at, so a fellow approaches me and says, man, I heard you talking about how you could help your friend with MS, right? And so is it Montel Williams, who has started a company because he was using black ash oil or FECO or Rick Simpson oil, or however you want to call it, right, for his MS and helping himself out. And at the time, that was kind of like hot news. And so, people mentioned last week too, go into forums on Facebook, go into forums on whatever social media you're in, and there's going to be groups and there's going to be hive mind that can help you find it through analgesic until we have this stuff figured out. You can find what formulations you want to put together to try and test is a whole nother way to figure it. But you want to build titrations, right? And you don't always need a whole lot. I'm going to go back to, and I want to do actually, so I'm going to me, but I can't put it in I have a no filter cam. I might have to deactivate, activate. Okay, transition. Here we go. Okay, so you can see very light, and it has actually, what do I put in here? That's lavender flower, right? So I use a little bit of lavender for calming as well, but this hasn't got 2% of the FECO in it. It's got a little bit of beeswax, and it's got this is a topical, but without the lavender and the beeswax, it's olive oil and mostly coconut oil. Okay, and so the same formulation for oil, and you titrate that from that 2% of cannabis oil to 25 or 50% for cancer patients, where they're taking a gram of that a day, right? And you know, I do, when I was in severe pain for my back, just a general full plant extract cannabis oil, where you're taking that entire plant and you're running it through. And I use the extractive I used was I use isopropyl. And a lot of people don't like that idea because most people can't comprehend the entire process of working in a laboratory and don't have a vacuum, don't have the knowledge. But originally they were talking about using Originally, people used all sorts of whatever you could get at the hardware store. Okay. And so the way people got around it was they would cover, after they evaporated out all the petroleum distillate polar solvent that they had, you would cover it with an inch or two of water and evaporate the water off as well. And so that would always be activated because you're heating it enough to boil that water. It was enough to drive off. But we're talking 35, 40 years ago, that's all people knew. All right. So today we have these neat machines. You can get, I have the magic butter link in my bottom there. Hopefully I'm going to get that Levo as well. But that's a kickback for me. I got to mention that. So I'm now a paid partner with them. If you buy through that link, I get a little kickback. Appreciate that if you do. And so, yeah, again, the titrations up and down, the different amounts that you might, and you know, it might be is such a fine amount that you use to make the difference for you. Okay. Like anymore, I started out with 10% FECO when I was in severe pain that allowed me to go trail run and ski and do things again. But I titrated down, and now if I'm even doing a maintenance thing, it's at 2%, the same strength as this topical, which is freaking nothing. There's the same amount in here maybe as I would smoke in a bowl, if even, maybe a bong hit. I don't know. It's not. It's such a small amount that does so much when. It's like a microdose, we could call it. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily need to be this massive quantity that's doing the job. It's got to be formulated correctly in proper acid or not acid form for whatever it is that you're looking at, right? And then if you need the terpene modifiers, understanding what those are and putting those appropriately. And so a whole nother thing that I wanted to touch on today, and this is going to hit on, if I don't get into the topics I wrote, this is all part of the same thing, and I'm going to get to those because this is actually a father came to me asking for help for his kids because my best friend died from MS, and I learned afterwards that I could have kept him alive a lot longer, right? One of maybe 6 people in my life I've called a best friend, okay? And so these different titrations, you figure out exactly, and this is where if we're dealing with kids, it's a little bit tougher, but you start on the smallest end. And I've got another good friend here in town whose daughter has special needs, and they put her on CBD. She was one of the first people in Utah to get licensed to be able to use CBD through the state, through Compassion State, before we had any other medical here. And they only did it for like 2 weeks. And they never changed the titrations. They never tried in any variations or anything. And they just noticed the same thing that you see is a tolerance build up. Okay. And so that's something that you have to be aware of as well. We all build tolerance. And I'd like to do an entire show just about tolerance and taking a break once in a while. I've got Red Primo over here in chat on the home channel and studio formats stating that we have CBD and THC both increase the effective maximum dose of the other, right? And that's what I've said. They work as a fulcrum and a lever, and so each alone you can use one as a wedge, you can use one as a pry bar or a digging stick, but you put those together and you can move tons, right? That's the difference. You can move pounds, you can move tons, right? And so. I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the chat is hidden from me on the main channel right now and running pretty fast. So I apologize. There's something messed up on that one today, and I've got it popped out, but I'm not seeing it so well, and it's moving too fast for me to read. So again, so these different titrations, you don't need to just get blasted. You can also you can synergize with the CBD, and I touched on it last week. That CBG may well be the answer. Like 42 in trees, right? I've not had my hands on it. It's not been around enough for people to really get a lot of evangelistic understanding of it. Everything I've heard from it is just phenomenal. And but I can't touch on it because I haven't. Right? There's a lot of things I don't like. I just made my best wash of hash in my life, and then I look at someone doing a demonstration of this pale white massive amounts. And it's like I'm still just a student. I'm just a student of the arts, right? But there's other things I have deep knowledge of, and I will share that. So, and here we are. So again, we're going through. We've got the different amounts of CBD, THC, THCA, possibly THCV to give your metabolism a lift. Okay. And these different, migraine is the one that we were at, and heading into like my buddy who passed away, he would just smoke. We didn't understand then really what the power of the FECO was. I'd already been helping making it for, I'd probably making it close to 20 years before he passed away, and had no idea that we were using it for edibles, for baked goods, right? And needing massive doses. And I was giving it to cancer patients, but it was soon after he had passed away when I started really realizing that I could have been titrating out dosages of that for him, he had his whole body would go into this cramp and turn, and he had one of the early internal pumps. And I was there one day that miracles, the thing fucking malfunctioned while I was in the house, and was able to like convince him to call, but we couldn't even get him any help as both his nurses were out of town, and et cetera, et cetera. We finally got an ambulance there, and it turned out that somehow the infrared programming system malfunctioned, and he was like bloop, 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 dosing his painkiller when he should have been not like getting a dose every 10 minutes or something, right? And so and that's a rare case in the early. Those things have improved, whatever. It's all part of the reality, but he wouldn't have needed that if we had been feeding them coconut oil, olive oil, and cannabis oil. All right, so one of my big things is slow cold extract. Okay, let me get back. I mentioned I use isopropyl, right? And it has a different polar than alcohol, right? Alcohol is the preferred method and you make a tincture is what it's called, right? So it's a slightly different thing, and it's in suspension. You can leave it in the alcohol suspension, right? And so different people are going to use it even really thin like that. But in the isopropyl, you need to have it completely removed. But there are some commercial operators who use it exclusively because it comes in a pure grade, and alcohol you can't get all the water out of, right? And so there's definitely things about that. But if you don't understand the laboratory science about it, if you don't understand what a polar solvent is, you don't want to be going and I'm sorry, I'm jumping around here because there's all this stuff I really want to hit, but the alcohol, the grain alcohol, if you can get it, is the way to go, right? I was starting to say that for a while there when I first learned about this, the best thing I could find, and I did some tests to look for residues and whatever studies I could find, but it was denatured alcohol was the best thing we could find, right? And again, 30 years ago, it's a whole different world now. I'm promoting these little machines where you put your coconut oil into it, and you push the button, and there's no burning yourself on hot, greasy stuff wrapped up in a bandana or a nylon stocking is how we used to do this, right? And boil it and put through nylon to wring it out, and literally burn the out of yourself every time you did it and stuff. So it's pretty awesome that you have these tabletop home operator things, and you can totally set your titrations on those. Okay, so where I'm going with this though was I'm talking about the heat, and when I mentioned this before in the early 90s when I was doing triathlons, I figured out I wanted to do everything cold and slow with my butter, and I would just heat it up enough to melt the butter, and I'd throw it in the freezer, right? And I'd do that 6 or 8 times, and was using that for my triathlon edibles and whatnot. And fast forward, and I started learning a whole lot more about these medicines, and I started realizing that all of the contents of this plant, all these terpenes, and they volatilize at room temperature, even much less at 200 degrees when you're boiling off alcohol, right? Or whatever other thing you use to extract it with. And so doing it slowly in lower temperatures at 100 degrees, 110 tops, right? You're maintaining the actual cellular viability of like chlorophyll, right? Or molecular viability of the chlorophyll, right? And so like it's literally just like it's a carbon or an oxygen. It's almost the same thing as our blood, our red blood cells, okay? And it's a super, super antioxidant healing thing in itself, right? So if you can keep that intact, along with getting some purples in there and the anthocyanins, okay, and you can keep that intact, right? And it doesn't matter what your ailment is. That's going to make you healthier, even if you're not even ailing on anything. If you can get those things into your system, whether it's through vegetables or whatnot. And just now, I just had an amazing thing. You know, we were talking the other night, and with Peter, we were discussing seed stocks, and he was having a hard time with this barley. And I was given 13 seeds of Ethiopian barley, and I grew it out in large amounts, and I'd pass it out and stuff for a while. But I now have all the stock I had in the jars was not sprouting, and this stuff is like, someone's like, so you got something to grow grain from a dry sandhill? And like, pretty much. But I thought I lost my stewardship of it. Nothing in the jar is growing, but I have a bunch of the display that I had for an art display that I wanted to draw, and hopefully. But the whole other thing is juicing that stuff when it's raw. Okay, so your barley grass, right, your wheatgrass, and the same thing with. But you need an extruder juicer, a regular old juicer. If you're going to use it, that's all you have. You don't have a really nice high-end juicer. They're expensive. You got to chop that stuff up because the fiber will destroy your machine really quick. Okay, but juiced leaf is just, and if you can do it with the whole flower, it's a whole nother thing. I've never been able to pull that one off myself. I know people who do that. Shout out to friends over the pond. And there's, but getting that live essence, the essence of the living plant. Okay. Again, it doesn't matter what your ailment is. If you can consume the whole living plant from your garden, right? If you can't do a whole garden, it doesn't matter what your ailment is. If you can get yourself a little microfarm growing microsprouts, okay, and you can eat microsprouts, whatever it is, and some things are a little bit spicier and some things are milder, but all that is just, you get that life force rolling into you, okay? And so that's what's going on. If you can keep it low and slow and cool when you do the extractions or a juicing or whatever it is to get this plant as medicine for what isn't getting fixed otherwise, right? And so we find that there's the more and more there's endocannabinoid system imbalances that contribute to a lot of these conditions, and or that's exasperating them. Okay, for instance, like I've had to stop consuming all alcohol. I had to stop drinking red wine several years ago because drinking a glass would cause a sinus issue that you wake up and if you've ever had a hangover, this was like dwarfing hangovers. I literally for years didn't know exactly what was going on. And the doctors would tell me I had these allergies and I didn't really understand that I was having these histamine reactions until one fellow totally explained me what a histamine reaction was. And the alcohol fully exasperates it. But I have this constant, I don't know what it is, there's balances of allergies, right? But I had to stop drinking red wine, and I finally just like, 2 beers, it's not the value and the enjoyment of sipping that isn't worth this headache increase that I get unless I go and take a pill. Whatever, it saves me money too. So what I'm saying though is the synergies of whatever it is. Okay, so you might have a condition, but with having your endocannabinoid system depleted on all sorts of realms, and it's so this comes to my understanding of it is that it's not just our cannabis intake itself, whereby it's all the flavonoids and colors and raw foods, period. Okay, and so cannabis is like got a huge. There's actually the receptors that fit in the brain and everything, right? There's that stuff for THC and CBD and all this stuff. But there's all these other terpenes and flavonoids and colors. All that stuff exists in all the rest of our food, but we eat processed foods for the most part in our society here in the United States, particularly. And I don't know about other cultures around the world how much. There's a lot of places that eat very, very well because that's just like that's their system. But our system is processed in supermarkets, canned food since the World War II, right? They're starting to get better and better meals, right? It's hard for me to understand, but there's these economy of scales. So sometimes it's a lot cheaper and a lot less energy for me to buy a packet of high grade organic soup for $2, all that stuff. And it comes right back to creating this medicine. You might have to go to get it from dispensary. You might have to, like I first treated a cancer patient, and thank God this isn't how it is anymore. I had to get off a freaking bus in downtown Los Angeles and buy from street dealers who are connected to cartel to buy press weed. Okay. And so again, thank God that that's not how this is done anymore. You can reach out through all sorts of channels, again, there's also shysters, right? If you're truly in need, you should never have to spend, you should never go out of pocket for it. There's always good, clean, organic material somebody has somewhere in your local area, right? Et cetera. I'm wondering, okay, I'm going to try and look at the chat over here. Bring that, oh, here, we got it up on top. So there was a fella I know from the local chocolate shop when I decided it was better for me to hang out in the chocolate shop than going to a therapist. Oh, someone blocked that one. There's the owner of the shop's husband would have mental issues, and he was fine until stress hit, and his mind would just jumble on stress, and he would become just like a babbling idiot, stumbling around, and just like he couldn't function as a human being. It was weird. And I never was able to figure out the formulation to help them out exactly. But the only thing he could consume that helped him was a 10 milligram THC in a lemon drop form. He couldn't do it any other way for whatever reason. It's bizarre because she owned the chocolate. They lived in a chocolate shop basically. And it's like, it'd be a lot easier if I could just make the chocolates. But yeah, so that's literally, and he became a highly functioning dude running the show again, right? With just one of these little things, and one was good for a week. Literally, that's all small. Some people's microdose works that way, right? Okay. I'm going to go back over here and bring us back up to looking at MS. And so I want to look at that too. I want to move you. We're going to move you, and you're going to still be accessible. All right, I can put you there. So I can bring you up easy. Oh, you're always up like that. Okay. I'm learning. So studies of the use of cannabis and multiple sclerosis symptoms tell us this. Cannabis extract taken in capsule form can help relieve muscle stiffness, spasticity, and spasms. The extracts may reduce pain. A mouth spray form possibly reduces spasticity, pain, bladder urgency. But the use of cannabis to treat MS symptoms is complicated. Again, so we would go through the same process and figuring out there's different stages of MS, right? I remember growing up and going to the Catholic church I went to. There was a young lady who ran the youth group, and she was in and out of a wheelchair. I remember going hiking with her, and I remember being in a wheelchair and being back up and singing in choir, right? So you go through stages. You get worse, you can get better, and it's usually some sort of complication that ends up, and that's what my buddy surmised, to some obscure complication that might not have synergistically been so bad had he not been dealing with these muscle cramps that cause his body to turn and spin and not feel his feet and tear them open by all sorts of. It's not something anybody you want to. He literally went blind climbing a tree one day. We climbed trees together and had to rappel out of the tree blind. So that's the main thing with it. But again, without knowing the whole thing, so we have the anti-inflammatory. So we're looking at the balance of the CBD versus the THC. Then, like I was saying, you might have nutritional issues Yeah, I know he was wasting away pretty bad. So you can increase appetite with cannabis as well, but not all cannabis does. And so, if I'm not mistaken, there's definitely some strains that cause munchies more than others, and I have no idea. I don't know what this is. I don't know how to close it. And so there's these things that balance. Oh, and that's one of the things I was coming. Golly, I don't know what these are coming from. Okay, these people talking about their stories. All right. The balance. So one thing that might with the migraine was why I was sticking back there. One thing that might help the blood flow to the head type stuff stabilize may also at the same time cause cotton mouth. Okay, and so something, and that's a terpene, right? For me, limonene causes like severe cotton mouth. So, but it also increases my awareness when I have too much mycene for the pain. Okay, and so you're looking at those balances, and I don't know if we can go back on where those terpenes were. Primary terpenes, and what was I asking stuff like effects of common terpene cannabis. Most abundant, how to use. It didn't give me the answer I was looking for. Sorry. Anyhow, let's go back and again. So Annie's, I was really trying to get away from this pop-ups. Again, tons and tons and tons of information here talking about, and it's a huge dive in to just start reading about it, right? But again, we're talking about adults versus children, we're going to have different dosages. We're going to have titrating up. We're going to have, you want to go, like juicing a raw plant is literally the best thing you can start with for all sorts of things. And what I was looking for here is seeing if anyone's talking about specific plants they're using or whatever. And so that's, I'm not really seeing any other flat out like we saw where I was able to bounce around with terpene and stuff on. What is this here? Chart. I think this year, okay. Give it a second for some. I can't read it yet either. I wish it would. There it is. All right. Cannabis multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is a degenerative and chronic disease in the central nervous system with an autoimmune component. All right, central nervous system, I think THCV, boom. Then autoimmune component. So then that's also getting the entire spectrum of all, like I was talking about, the chlorophyll and the anthocyanin, right? The minor terpenes and stuff that comes in right there. Affects the brain and the spinal cord. And so something else that the next one that hits in is the seed of the plant. Okay. And I'm going to grab something real quick. I have for my vision board, I'm going to pop back over here real quick. I'm on that one. I'm sorry. I thought you guys had me there. So I wanted to show you this. I've been looking at and reading that. Sorry, folks. I'm still new to this OBS program, and but I wanted to show y'all. So literally, this is what I have on my vision board on my refrigerator next to my phone. And it is a seed press. It's a small 10 ton, 15 tons, right? But my vision is to mount these on trucks and drive around wherever there's hemp seed or whoever has seed and clean it and run it through these machines and separate out the cake and but the protein in the seed, right? If you can get seed that's fresh, the oil in there as well, you get the hemp seed oil, and that's like a perfect food. It's better than beans and rice, right? And so that's one of the ways our body can really, really, really heal. It doesn't matter what it is you're going on. You add that. You add some of the other ancient grains that we have lost, like flaxseed and the chia and things like that into your diet. It doesn't. All those things are going to make it a whole lot easier for everything else. That's so. Let's go back and to this here. Shucks. I'm sorry. What did I do? I can't even. There we go. Sorry. All right. So affects the brain and the spinal cord. Is the second cause of disability in young adults after car accidents. So myelin is like a special kind of like myelin sheath on the nerve is a type of fatty tissue, as I understand it, right? And it shows here graphic how there's some issues there with the myelin. Attack the protective sheath of the myelin, which wraps the axons of the neurons in the brain and spinal cord, causing communication issues between the brain and other parts of the body. With the passing of time, it can cause permanent damage of the neurons, provoking permanent disability in different parts of the body, right? Okay, so that again tells me we really want to search out THCV for the MS patient, right? And titrate in through different levels of THCV and see where that's helping in this spasticity as well. And this is stuff like, okay, you're not going to get this kind of information from a bud tender, right? My brain has this like insane amount of information. That's why I stumble when I'm talking, because there's so much. It's like I don't write it down. It's like, where am I going to go? But when I see these informational triggers, or you see me in chat on other people's talks, and I'm just boom, 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 information just comes instantly out because it's associative for me, is how I'm able to recall it best. Okay, that's how my brain works. I have a really weird wiring. Again, I can't remember names for shit. And but most information, spatial relationships, physical objects, I can walk into the forest and go for days and walk right back to the same place without ever looking at a map, within 100 feet of my car. It's just I'm a little bit different, but that's how I work. So let's see. So depending on some other stuff here, we can find how are we doing for time? I got 45 minutes here. The different types of MS, right? Okay, so again, we're looking at specificity of particulars diagnoses in different patients, right? I'm gonna have to put some glasses on here. Yeah, the myelin sheath. I think eating the seeds, cooking with cannabis oil, getting that protein structure and the fatty acids is a huge thing that we can add into and try and see if it's going to help out. A lot of the stuff I'm speculating. I'm not a doctor. I just have this knowledge of this plant, and when I read these different things that are going on in the body, this is what I react, and this is what I would do and suggest to people. So there's more in the northern hemisphere and less in the southern hemisphere. That tells me it has a lot to do with our food, right? That processed food, again, not getting the full diet, that full, the secondary triggers, right? A lot of times there's a late life onslaught. My buddy was 30 something when it set in on him. Okay. different types of MS depending on the course of the disease, relapse, remitting, or chronic primary and secondary. Multiple sclerosis treatments does not have a cure. Their treatments help recover from relapses, control the symptoms, and change the evolution of the disease, right? And so again, if we find that THCV is helping with that myelin sheath, I know it helps with other people. There's other neuron issues that people point to that for quite a bit. I know it's had some amazing help for people. A friend, I don't know if I'd call her a patient. She lives in a correspondent and someone who's used some of my seeds to had THCV in it, and she was able to use it to bake brownies. And without that in the brownies, being a severe diabetic, she never could have. But she said with THCV was able to reduce her insulin and other drug usage, right? But that's for diabetic and changing their metabolism. Okay, and so think about that again for cystic fibrosis when we get there. It's probably not going to be today. We might take a quick look at it, but I want to go. So that's one of the, that's a strong steroid that actually degenerates the body itself, right? And so there is definitely evidence is coming out that the cannabis can be way stronger than steroids for all sorts of primarily pain, but I've used steroids for pain. It was they used it on me when they were trying to figure out exactly what was going on with my severe extreme pain. It was like a synergistically increased pain issue from all of my spinal issues and pinched nerves and things like that. Made me angry as shit. My poor daughter took the brunt of it. I had most of that controlled at that point, and all of a sudden, I don't like, but it is what they use at this time, right? Okay, so with treatment to modify the greater evolution, beta infernos, I don't recognize beta interferons, glatiramer acetate, fingolimod, dimethylfumarate. That sounds like a blood thinner. I can't even. I'm not even try. That's a lot of drugs. Evidence shows alterations in different parts of the endocannabinoidal system in MS patients and its animal models. Okay, so this is newer information because, again, the endocannabinoidal system was first identified in about 1992. We've developed more and more information on that since then. But some of the first stuff they started understanding is how the brain receptors and the THC molecule kind of seem like, hey, those kind of look like they fit. So anandamide was increased in cerebrospinal fluid and plasma of MS patients in remission. Cannabinoid CB1R and CB2R receptors and FAA enzyme of endocannabinoidal degradation were augmented in nervous system lesions of MS patients. Okay, were augmented in nervous system. Okay, so it shows that the endocannabinoidal system is affected by the MS, right? And so if it's depleted, it's probably more easily attacked if it does not have the chemistry in place that makes it a complete system. Okay, a decrease in the enzyme FAAH was found in the blood of patients with secondary progressive. Based on this data, medicinal treatment with cannabis could diminish the neuroinflammation of this disease and therefore the damage. Right. And like I said, they're not even considering the THCV here. They're just talking about CBD and THC delta 9. Okay. And THC A is a greater anti-inflammatory than the combination of CBD and THC9, right? And so when you can combine all these together in titrated ratios and figure out where we're, saying, and then we can bring in other stuff like the terpene profiles that can increase cognitive, and that was the pinene, right, and the pinene group and the limonene group, right, as opposed to the sedative groups, and those counterbalance each other too, right? So seeking out, and that's one of the things that when Brother Bones talking about providence plants, right, and you're in a place where it's like we get to these positions where this stuff has been tested and it's been identified, and we say we know this is what this one is. That's where this stuff becomes important, okay? But until you have this thing identified and you have access to it, it could be anyone's upset, and people are lying as to what it is and things like that. So, oh wow! So there's a timeline of information there. Symptomology improvement of MS patients in 1981, consuming recreative cannabis led to the first study of cannabis in MS. So in 81 was the first studies when people, just people saying, man, smoking makes me feel a lot better when I'm suffering from this. 2002, several controlled clinical trials were performed showing a limited evidence of cannabinoid effects, THC plus CBD, in one of MS symptoms, spasticity. And that's from Sajak et al. 2005. 2011, Sativix approval, the first cannabis-based medicine, THC and CBD, in 1-to-1 ratio to be commercialized for spasticity in MS treatment. All right. Cannabinoids in animal models of MS. The administration of phytocannabinoids, endocannabinoids, and synthetic cannabinoids in animal models of MS improves the motor symptomology associated with the disease and its development. Cucuro et al. 2018. Decrease of neuroinflammation. Cannabinoids have potent anti-inflammatory effects in MS. This is medicated, and this is mediated by the activation of CB2 receptors in immune and glial cells and in CB1R and CB2R of the blood-brain barrier cells. Increases of endogenous reparative mechanism in cannabinoids promote the regenerative of myelin. So it says even the cannabinoids promote the regeneration of myelin sheaths in the nerve fibers and protect the neuronal death. These effects are dendrocytes and neurons. Okay, so again, all the studies are being done on the CBD and THC, delta 9. They're not even talking about what I mentioned here with the V and the A. Okay, and so there's way more potential than we've been able to study at this point for the MS patients. And again, I haven't even looked at this in several years. And so, thanks for bearing with me rolling through all that stuff. We are coming in towards the end of this one, and I think just real quick. So I touched the beginning of the show talking about how to go through and titrate and look at the different synergies and anergistic effects of the different chemistries of cannabinoids versus the terpenes. And the terpenes can modify as well in the absence of, for instance, CBD. You can mellow things out with the mycene, and that's one of the reasons why people moved away from the super racy and they prefer more middle ground, right? You don't want to go to sleep. You don't want to be like bouncing off the walls. Whatever, those things we've bred out, the wide ends of those for the most part, and those can be where the medicine lies for certain people. I was showing last week how the fellow in Australia found relief and felt like he went back 20 years from where I bred back into a land race, a polyhybrid modern standardized strain, and then let that go to open pollination. So I can't really identify exactly where that one is. Hopefully we can select a sample of that and find what that neural effect was. Okay. So I'm talking to everybody there, and here I am again. Big, huge picture that like, you know, when you add up 35, so where are we coming into now? 38 years. Is that it? Since 85, 84 when I first inhaled the smoke. 85 I first planted a seed and treated somebody for cannabis or for seasickness with cannabis, and 86 with cancer. Right, so we're coming into I got some knowledge in but how I applied to be the state's cannabis expert, and they said they had someone more qualified. And I think it's just because they could do like the Microsoft Word better than me. I don't know. But like, there's so much more information I don't even have. Right. And there's so much more being learned. Right. And so hopefully I'm kind of like this middle ground for folks who are trying to reach out or coming out of where their states become legal or still is in prohibition. And I'm able to exercise my First Amendment right on several levels here, is federally recognized with the First Amendment and the back from an act of Congress that was passed in the year 2000 that says I'm sacred earth, sacred plant. This is me. And there ain't no change in that. Nobody going to deny it either. I'm sincere as to who I am. And so I'm able to help you out, help yourself out. And that's our rights here in this country. And grateful that the Peter Parisi was able to point me out to that. And yeah, let me see if I can bring the chat up here. Appreciate you, everybody on the home channel checking out the. Got people who are driving their car listening to this, who are trying to fit it in when they can, who are busy trying to provide for their families or whatever it is, and heal their children or their parents or their husband or wife. We got people who, again, gratefully that the closed captions come up. I'm happy to spend the time to figure out how to make that work and get them on. And it's kind of hard for me to sit down and type them all in, but I've had to do that a couple times. And but that's for the folks who have a hard time understanding what I'm saying. And I understand that happens, especially when I'm typing. And I'll go back in there and fix my typos. And I'm learning how I gotta probably just use a word processor and type my intro out and then pop it into the OBS studio, and then I'll have an initial feed with proper there. And so let's see, let's do a little burn a little white sage today. We've got the abalone shell. When I was a kid, we were able to hunt these on the coast, and I had a dive knife, and I would go out spearfishing and abalone shell hunting, and some crazy experiences out in the Pacific Ocean. Yeah. So that my thoughts may come clearly to you all and understand the words. Appreciate you all for tuning in and taking the time to learn. So yeah, we're going to hit up on cystic fibrosis and pick up where we're at next week and move on from there. Keep on this all. Just checking any important questions at the bottom here. Y'all are chatting together. Cool. Appreciate y'all. Take you back out with the flute. We're yeah, I got to pay attention with I got like that delay on the feed. So I got come on. I got to figure out how to stop it before I run overtime on my hour. Peace out, everyone. Peace out, everyone. Appreciate you.